Let's get down to business here. So starting off with your first point here, you said, I think when it came to the whole issue about whether to reject material life and become like an ascetic monk, for example, or to continue spirituality and worldly life. You said that on this point, you said it was reconciled. I am curious about what your inner thoughts were on that. Like what changed in that for you? What decided it for you? I'm guessing you steered away from the monk path and said, you know what, maybe I can just do this in worldly life. But yeah, so I guess a few points on that though. Some things to consider. For me, back when I began my path, for me it was a no-brainer based on my situation. You know, I had no future to speak of, like I was going to die like any year. Like I had no quality of life. It could have been, my last year could have been any year at that point. And I was super, I fully believed every word that Buddha said. I believed in nirvana, rebirth, just through philosophical conviction, right? It wasn't like blind Christian faith or anything. I just knew that the things he was speaking, like he knew what he was talking about. His system was intelligent. It was effective. And I believed in nirvana, and I wanted to put an end to reincarnation. And obviously my life didn't support enjoying anything worldly, right? So for me, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to become a monk. That was it. The only thing stopping me, ironically, was health. And of course, college debt. You can't join a monastery if you have debt. That's like one of the monastic rules, and there's reasons for that. Like you can't endanger other people, you know, with like loan sharks and whatever. But yeah, so those were the components of me wanting to choose that path, and because it was a no-brainer for me, but my life path trajectory, my higher self's intention for incarnating wasn't in line with being that kind of monk. It was that decision was obstructed for me. It was blocked because that wasn't the way my soul wanted to go. I could have gone that way. I could have succeeded with flying colors because of my past life talents and stuff coming to this life. I know that for a fact. But yeah, life brought me on a different trajectory. It kind of like brought me out of Buddhism a bit into more mystical things, into other branches of spirituality, Zen Buddhism, non-duality, Sadhguru, the law of one material, all this material. And it suggested, hey, there's all these spiritual folks out there. You can help them out a lot through your path of self-development, spiritual development rather. Sooner or later, you're going to be able to help all these people out a lot. You're going to be able to bring these teachings back to the world that have been forgotten for so long, and to be honest, never brought to the West in the first place in like a powerful, intelligent way, or a massive way. And so, you know, different signs and messages like this would come to me, or even realizations that kind of made my path more clear. And I was always like frustrated about this because I was in so much pain, so much mental pain, that like, you know, the path that spirit seemed to be suggesting to me, it was like, what am I getting out of this? I'm just in pain here. Like I'm still physically ill. I can't do anything. Like making these videos is very stressful for me. I can't meditate though, because I'm also stressed out. So like, what's going on here? And, you know, there were answers that came to me. I just didn't recognize them as such because of like where I was at, my lack of support in this realm, my lack of support on my path, the lack of guidance in this realm. It was all on me. It was all on me in piecing together messages from either psychics or my dreams or experiences, right? So yes, I could have succeeded with that, actually. I could have succeeded at being a monk at home based on my circumstances. I could have done that same path. And I could have also done the worldly path more completely. But both were kind of obstructed for different reasons. Okay, but long story short, and this plays into, I think the main point of what you want help with. You said, I don't want to die without understanding my higher self and the world from a higher vantage point. And that really seems to be my calling. So here's something for you. I got it in my head that it's like, oh, I got to do YouTube. I got to help people out. This is going to lead me to a place where like my health is better and maybe my mental health is better. So there's just less obstacles to my Buddhist path in general. So let's do this. This seems to be what Spirit's suggesting. And that didn't work out because I had severe social anxiety and I'm a perfectionist and et cetera, et cetera. So it was very challenging and stressful for me to make YouTube content. Okay. My power of speech was very obstructed. Not like other people who can just like whip out like perfect discourses for no reason. And it's like, well, are you like memorizing every single thought in your head? I don't understand how you operate, to be perfectly honest, still to this day. Obviously I've gotten better at that. I've figured out more of the mechanics of how normal people operate and what I was lacking in that caused me to be inept, so to speak, at off the cuff speaking, right? In addition to social anxiety. So that path, I wasn't good at that path. I needed the Buddhist path. I couldn't reject it. I just didn't know how to keep incorporating it. I didn't know how to prioritize that and prioritize my health, but then also do the seva, the service work after I filled my own cup. It was all about filling my own cup. That was the secret I was missing. Okay, and I hope this is recording. I didn't check. That's okay. Okay, it's recording waveforms. I see it. Excellent. I had to fill my own cup first. That was the secret. I was too used to putting up with supreme amounts of bullshit with my mind in the external world. I was thoroughly disempowered, so I was just eating shit from within and externally, right? People's condescension and like rudeness and whatever, you know. I was just too good with putting up with it. So naturally I continued that trend, but with my own path. So there wasn't enough self-love. There wasn't the idea of self-love coming first, being a key part of my path enough for me to prioritize that. I should have prioritized meditative efforts of whatever kind I could get results with. I should have prioritized my Sudarshan Kriya, the pranayama breath meditation I learned in India, specifically for energizing and healing my body. That's why the universe brought that to me, that India trip, right? My health was so bad that I was like, I can't even do this breath meditation. It's going to like mess up my diaphragm probably. And you know, that was kind of true to an extent, but like I just gave it up completely as if it wasn't going to be a key part in removing the obstacles standing in the way of my path. Okay, so that's where I went wrong. I was also looking for money. Even though I was completely like basically on a deathbed, so to speak, I was still like, oh man, I gotta get my own income. I don't want to deal with the medical system. They don't have a label for me, so I'm just doing doctor roulette, and I hate it. I hate the tests and all that. So I gotta get money so I don't have to go through the medical system anymore and get like welfare and all that. And obviously I feel terrible about my family having to support me. So actually that's a key factor too, to give you more perspective about how to proceed yourself. I diverted from my path, filling my own cup with what I value most, which was well-being, Buddhist success, and health, right? I put that aside for this idea that I need to make money because I'm terrified of like the medical system, right? And there was things I could have done probably that wouldn't even have been an issue in the first place. Like my dad was fully happy to support me, and maybe like he wouldn't have even had like made an issue of it. I don't know, because I made it an issue for myself. And that's part of why I did so much backbreaking work on YouTube, thankless backbreaking work on YouTube. It didn't net me any results, right? It didn't net me the adventurous story that like the universe seemed to be promising me. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen with that. I thought it was going to lead to like sort of like cool story unfolding that was just going to like somehow bring me health and like confidence and all this stuff along the way, right? And even like, you know, Buddhist, the ability to like meditate unobstructedly, etc., etc. So I put this other thing first. I stressed myself out even more, just all that time. I got bitter at the universe for like not supporting what it alleged to what it alleged to be wanting me to pursue. That's what it seemed like. I was like, if you want me to be, if like clearly my trajectory is to be a monk, it's to attain nirvana, it's to help others through this, and it maybe even dating too, surprisingly, but you're not supporting any of that. I'm suffering here, so like I don't like you. Like I don't like any of this. So I shut down at a certain point, which just made stuff worse. So, so I hope all that gives you some good perspective on like how there's certain decision points and certain things you value within your own path that will help show you what the proper trajectory forward is, the one that's in alignment with your higher self. What does your higher self value? Maybe that's a good question for you to ask. What would the ideal version of yourself, the one that's released from all of its fears and worries and concerns, what would that one pursue? What decisions would it make now? And you'll realize that decisions it would make would be things that you value, things that you want in your life. Whether maybe that is health for you, maybe that's well-being, maybe that's a certain career, maybe that's a certain set of life circumstances, maybe that's being a certain kind of person, a certain level of virtue, a certain skill at helping others. Like whatever it is, whatever decision needs to be made in the moment, you can kind of feed it through that question. The higher self, your higher self version, Miriam, it's your future self. It's your future self, pre-enlightened self, let's say. Actually, no, it is the physicalized, actualized version of your personality that would come from becoming enlightened and self-actualized. That's how I think of higher self. So it's the future version of yourself, okay? People don't necessarily attain union with their higher self. That's a difficult feat. You do have to attain the deathless, nibbana, right? And that's just part of the equation. Self-actualization is another component. We're not going to get into that, but it is the theoretical future version of yourself that does exist simultaneously in the present moment that guides you from the future in our terms, in our conception of linear time, right? It's guiding you from the future to say, hey, this is what I would do. This is what I would do. And you're choosing something different because of certain beliefs, certain fears, certain worldly concerns that aren't in alignment with self-love. Okay, so these are the things that are keeping us away from our ideal golden timeline, as I call it, a golden timeline. And so when you kind of like evaluate your life in those terms, in light of my story to you just now and those factors, like what would my higher self choose, you can kind of get a clearer picture of what your ideal path forward is. The one that's going to have the most joy, the one that's going to have the most fulfillment, the one that's going to bring you the things you desire, right? Hang on, a car went by and for some reason I lost my train of thought. Usually that means in psychic work, that means like it's time for a topic change, okay? So I think we're gonna do that, but like that's key. I know that's a key part of your question. Prioritize that. It's never going to change. You valuing understanding your higher self and the world from the point of divinity, that's never going to change, Miriam. No matter what you pursue, it's always going to be on the back burner. You're going to wake up 3 years from now and be like, if you don't pursue that directly and be like, damn, I still don't have that. The things I've been doing up until this point, they didn't get me closer to my goal. And now I still just have to pursue this goal again. And at that point, this happened to me, that was very, very difficult for me because I reached that same point. Years of efforts that didn't get me anywhere. They didn't get me closer to anything I value. And that's a huge, it leaves a huge gaping hole in your heart that's difficult to then overcome because you still do have to soldier on. There's no other choice. You could become depressed and just like give up on life, but like that's so dumb. Unfortunately, you're backed into a corner. You have to succeed or just like give up to depression. And you know how samsara is, reincarnation, like you're just gonna have to like do stuff again, but in a different life. Might as well take your the opportunity, the beautiful merit of your understanding now in this present life that you've come to, this critical turning point where you have all of the willingness to pursue your life the way you want. Take that opportunity and make the most of it, because not many people reach that point. Most people, they have these, it looks like luxury, but actually it's a prison, because they don't have the catalytic factors to push them towards the things they actually want. They have like a carte blanche to just fuck around. Sorry, I don't know if you're cool with swearing. To mess around and just keep choosing things that aren't ideal for them. They just put up with it, and nothing really changes enough to force them to change. So you're at an important turning point right now, and that's why I'm doing this session for you, because that kind of person is rare. The kind of person who's completely 100% willing and is at that place in their life where they're ready to take the next step, they're ready to make the massive changes, except for the lack of wisdom and knowledge, for example, or just knowledge. That's a valuable thing. Those are the kinds of people who came to the Buddha, who come to any enlightened teacher, really, as a true, genuine disciple. They're like, hey, I've been planning this for lifetimes. I'm ready. There's nothing holding me back now. I don't have any ego or superiority complex about this decision. I don't have any doubts about it. I just know that this is the way. So Buddha's top disciples, Sariputta and Moggallana, and to be honest, all of them, they incarnated for that. They were destined for it. And there's analogies describing that in the Buddhist literature, like the way that their stories unfolded. But anyway, when the student is ready, right, the teacher will appear. So there are other questions that you asked that I do want to answer, but to continue on here, my question is, what are you doing? What practices are you doing right now to pursue that goal? Your calling of understanding and aligning with your higher self and its path, the path that it's calling you towards, right? Using your spiritual gifts, your God-given gifts, your Allah-given gifts, right? God wouldn't make us this way. He wouldn't give us higher faculties if it wasn't meant to be that way, right? So there's nothing non-Muslim about it. I know you're open-minded, but you're technically within a Muslim family. So let's work with that context too. There should be no shame around that. It's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah, becoming more of your real self, opening up your true abilities. There's nothing unspiritual about that. There's nothing ungodly about that. There's nothing unorthodox about that, whether Christianity or Islam. They just don't have a framework for understanding it that way. Anyway, so what practices are you doing? What practices would you like to be interested in doing, in pursuing this? Part of it is the knowledge that I'm giving you now. But then part of it is well, how do you proceed now? How do you proceed with your life? What tools, what understandings do you proceed with to actualize that, to live that as a path? Okay? And it sounds like you're interested in Buddhism, so you could definitely use those tools. But you want to combine it with worldly life, okay, to bring it back to the first thing. Right? You're in a certain situation like me where life has placed you, your soul has placed you in a situation where becoming a monk, maybe that's not the best option. It's appealing to you for a reason, because that's meant to be incorporated, right? The idea of pursuit of unity with God, with attaining the deathless self-realization. But your soul is advanced enough where it's saying, hey, in this current age, we actually don't need to do the monastic thing per se. There are people who are called to do that specifically. But some of us have enough of a reincarnational background that we have the skill set to do that very same thing, but in worldly life. And we are meant to guide other people through the experience that we gain. Okay? Because right now, the spiritual path that we're following right now it's about unifying the collective. It's about changing the entire face of the world, changing the entire face of the paradigms that this world is governed by. And that requires spiritual people living their authentic path and then sharing with others in a non-egotistical way to the furthest extent as possible, where you don't want to get high on your own supply and lose compassion, lose sight of self-development, the fact that learning and auditing yourself is always a necessary part of your path, right? We don't want to get into a guru identity where we're like forcing teaching on other people when they don't want it, right? But like, and I don't feel like that would be a problem for you, but I feel like it's a good disclaimer to throw at anybody embarking on a spiritual path, because you're going to hit that point eventually if you don't have that guidance. Yeah, so right, what techniques are you using? And yeah, figure out how to make it work in your worldly life. I highly recommend reading the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, famous Hindu text about karma yoga, pursuing self-realization while in worldly life. There's key principles there. I'm outlining them now, actually. For myself, I'm revisiting it for my own path, because that's my path, karma yoga. How do I bring my Buddhist background? I'm living a worldly life. I can't get away from it. I can't just meditate all day now. I have a girlfriend. I have bills to pay. I've got to like figure out how to take that and put it into my worldly life. And if I can't do that, then do I really have useful wisdom at all? Right? So it's all about figuring out what components, how do we make this work? How do we incorporate it? And there's tons of elements to it, right? Like mindfulness. That's a key component. So read the Bhagavad Gita. I encourage you to do that. What else? There's tons of other factors involved, right? Like we could work on that. Like how do I actually pursue unity with higher self, right? That's the way that you seem to be called to relate to that. How do I pursue becoming integrated with my higher self, achieving it while in this situation, which sounds like, an orthodox sort of Muslim household where, as far as I know, you're not able to really embark on your own until age 27 at minimum. So look at this as an opportunity. Your higher self put you here. You want to be in this situation. Think of it that way. You want to be here with those conditions. Your conditions are food for contemplation and analysis to gain wisdom about how to proceed in a more joyful way, in a more fulfilling way. So you want to analyze the components that you've manifested for yourself at this current point in your life. What is it calling you to do? What specific path is it calling you to do? What does it require you to do? Okay? Your situations is going to require you to do specific things to advance. For me with health, that requires addressing the health, right? I can't just be a Buddhist and ignore it and then be like, well, the health is the health. It's probably not going to get better, so let's just neglect it, right? And that was like kind of the best I could do, to be honest, with my mystery illness. So that, and I did believe that pursuing nirvana was going to cure it, and it probably would have, to be honest, if I could do it full on. But anyway, like, what are your situations, your circumstances calling you to do? That is your path. So understand it this way, you're not being obstructed from your true path given your current situation and circumstances. They're not obstructing you. They're actually calling you to a very specific way forward that isn't necessarily in the traditional books. The traditional books, Buddhism, Hinduism, and all that gives us the food we need, the philosophical food we need, people like you and I who are advanced, to live a very unique spiritual path at this time in worldly life, in a way that is geared towards collective, is geared towards coming together with others, changing the global paradigms. That is what all of our spirituality needs to be like geared towards, because that's where the world is headed. We have to eliminate the old by replacing it with the new. And we have to develop ourselves to the best of our ability, make ourselves the best possible example for others in terms of wisdom, in terms of teaching capability, in terms of virtue, being in alignment with our values and what virtues we value, what we would value having other people treat us like. We have to be in alignment with that all the time. That is, again, the point that that's the question that we evaluate to determine, how do I proceed in the best way? Who do I need to become? Those are the answers to that. What are my virtues? What are my values? I need to be in alignment with that. What do I believe? I need to live in alignment with that. Because others exist. If others were to perceive me right now, if I was to consort with them, would I be embodying all those things? Or is it just empty? Do I just believe them, but I'm not actually upholding them? Okay, so that's part of our practice. And yeah, the collective is going to become a major concern for all of us. Okay, that's what I'm geared towards. That's my ministry. I want to uplift everybody. I want to destroy the darkness in everyone's hearts and minds. I want to fill it with the light of all the wisdom and knowledge I've gained all this time. That's kind of what I've been held back from doing for the longest time, finding my way. Okay, it's finally coming together now for me. And looking back, there's tons of mistakes that I made where I could have made my life way, way easier. And, it sucks looking back and seeing that, being forced to be able to have to see that. So if I could say anything, it's the important things are taking action on what you value, knowing that when there's fears in your life, you've got to do your best to destroy those fears through belief work. Just relentlessly pursue understanding them and changing them with logical analysis. Because if you let those fears be there, remain there, they're just going to keep manifesting shitty life circumstances for you, shitty outcomes. And sooner or later, there's going to be something that happens where you're just forced to let go of it anyway. Life is going to be well, you got to face this. Either you got to release your fear on this, or your life is going to suck. There's going to be some terrible consequences. So look, we can't sleep on fears. We can't sleep on our samskaras, our programs, our mental tendencies that harm us. They cause us to take harmful, unskillful action and speech towards ourselves and others. We can't sleep on those. So look, those aren't going anywhere. You got to address them. That's number one. Number two, pursue what you truly value and don't do it in an indirect way. If you do have to take a unique path, make sure that you're prioritizing that as you proceed through those unique life circumstances, which in your case and in my case is being in worldly life. We're not monks. Maybe we can't even become monks, right? We don't have that opportunity, let's say. Prioritize the things you value. If I prioritize health, I'd be healthy by now, probably. And that would have changed everything. I could have done spirituality way easier, much less pain in my body and mind, right? So cut out the middleman. Don't let yourself have years of wasted efforts where you just realize again that you weren't doing the things you valued that whole time. And they weren't getting you closer to the things you valued. Just cut out the middleman. Cut out all of that potential regret. And just be brave, be bold. Identify what it is that you want and what you have to do to get there. And have fun with it. That's part of it. And that's karma too, right? We can relate that to the traditional material. Karma is not just speech and action. It's your moment by moment state of mind. Making a beautiful mind in the present moment. How do you have to be to do that? What do you need to do? How do you need to change your perspective on others and the things they say and yourself? Maybe you use law of attraction. Okay? Whatever techniques it is, maybe it's goodwill. The Buddha's Brahma Vihara, the four sublime attitudes, goodwill, compassion, equanimity, and empathetic joy. Right? So have fun though. Know that this is a game. Your future self is overshadowing you. It wants to have fun with its lifetime. Yes, it wants to reintegrate for the sake of happiness and complete joy, but it's also here in incarnation in the illusion of duality to have fun with it. So put down anxieties about getting somewhere in a certain time frame. That's another thing that held me back and made my path unjoyful. Put down the anxieties. Do what you can and let yourself have fun with it. Because there'll probably come a time in the future where you're like, oh, you know what? I could have just had an easy time with this. I could have taken it easy and like enjoyed myself and done meditations and research and all this. And I'd be way better off now than I am now. And there was no reason to worry anyway. I still got to the same place I am now, but I don't have any of that enjoyment to look back at. I don't have any of that attainment and talent I could have developed if I just released worry about it and enjoyed myself. Okay? So make sure you do that as you integrate all of this advice. Okay? And I know this is a long voice message. I don't... I'm sure there's probably a few things questions. I did ask you a few questions about things I want to know. But I know it's a lot of material. Let's see. So let's go look back at your file again. That's right. I'm making files. Professional. I know. So I feel like I kind of want to leave it at there for now. To be honest, you do have some other things in here, like the line between righteous action and hurting the self and all that. But I feel like I would just go off on another giant discourse if I began that. And I'm kind of tired right now. So tell you what, let's leave it at that for now. Maybe I'll answer those at some point. Take this in first, though. And let me know if you have any comments or questions. Okay. Take care.